Hey, greetings everyone. I'm Count Jackula.
I'm the Horror Guru.
And we just got watching the entire run of show that you ought to be watching right now. It's on Netflix called Danger 5.
Yeah, Danger 5. It's one hell of a fucking show.
Yeah. It is a more yes.
Yeah.
But it is a hell of a show.
Yeah.
It starts out, the 2 seasons are so crazy. So it has a single continuity, but the style of the show changes between seasons.
Yeah, the first
drastically.
Absolutely. The first season is very 60s. It's like a 60s poppy show of like these 5 dangerous spies who are trying to fight Hitler during World War II.
Yeah, it's almost like Terrahawks or one of those puppetmation shows, except it has live action actors.
Like a fucking what's it called?
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds. Yeah. That's actually a really good comparison. It's a lot like that.
Yeah, it uses a lot of like cheap models, whatever. Like we did a car chase, it's like 2 model cars following each other.
Every time it cuts outside of a building, it is a model building. If they're in a car chase, it's a model car. If they're in a plane chase, it's model planes. Basically, anything that is not in a room is usually a model of some kind, which means there's a whole lot of models blowing up. There's a whole lot of like toy cars running after each other and like getting shot up. It's amazing. It's glorious.
And each of the 5 main characters represents a member of the Allied powers. Like you got the British girl, the American dude, the Russian girl, and the French guy.
You also have the Australian
and you have
man.
the Australian guy.
Yep.
But there's something weird that happens with the Australian character because in the first season, he seems British.
He really did. At least to me, he did. But going like the episode where they go back in the second season to meet their old selves, I'm like, oh, actually, he's been Australian the whole time. That is an Australian accent. It just sounds very similar to British.
Yeah, and by the way, you did hear that right. There's time travel involved.
Yes.
Because whatever crazy like pop culture thing they can fit in, they'll do, and that's kind of only the beginning of the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite running jokes for the first season is every time someone, a named character dies, it dies in the French guy's arms, and that person will then give him the recipe for a cocktail.
Yep, because one of his character traits is that he runs the bar for some reason. He just does.
Yeah, because everyone drinks in this show.
Here's the thing. He's not really French. He's just European in general. Because at times he's utilizing a French accent, sometimes he's utilizing Italian, and he even has a home at one point in Italy.
That's right. Yeah, so he's just kind of like,
he's just basically just this amalgamation of European accents.
Whatever non-UK European we need at the moment, he kind of is. Though in the first one, he is way more specifically French. In the second season, he jumps around a little bit more. Because when they get to the second season, which is the real reason you need to watch the show, the first season is basically set up for the second one. The first season's good. You will enjoy it.
It's really fun.
It's really fun.
Every episode's about killing Hitler somehow, trying to find a way to kill Hitler. Hitler gets away. God damn it, Hitler. And then they try to track him down and try to kill him again in some crazy scheme. Like there's a fucking episode with like, what was it? Like a brothel that like has a sexually transmitted Nazi disease where if you fuck one of the hookers, you turn into a Nazi.
Yeah. Like you have like the blonde wig and like blue contact lenses, and you're all like smiling Hitler.
There's another episode where Hitler just inexplicably has shark men.
Yes,
like, he just has shark soldiers that have shark heads, and they run around just shooting people. There's one where Hitler gets in a giant fucking mech and they fight him like kaiju style.
Yeah, because it's a Japanese. Because now they're representing like the Japan part of the Axis.
And that's the first season. That's basically the gist of the first season. Every new episode is Hitler has a new scheme. We gotta go stop Hitler, and they
have that colonel who's like got this giant eagle mask on. He's like, and I want you to kill Hitler.
And a colonel who is inexplicably just unabashedly sexist, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, because every episode opens up with like, all right, Danger 5, I've got your new mission. And then like the British girl says, what's this? He's like, shut up, you female. or some version of that.
It's making fun of like of the way like old 60s shows kind of pushed women to the side as this like oh, you can't be smart, you're a woman. That's basically what it's making fun of, and it's doing it gloriously. Because at the end of the day, you watch the episode and she had the most reasonable idea.
Yeah. She was always the smartest, she's always the most level-headed. She usually won the day.
Yeah.
Then you get to the second season. All of a sudden, everything changes. The characters are all still there.
Here's what you need to know about the second season. The second season is the gritty 80s reboot of the first season.
Yeah.
So it takes place, this time we flash forward to the 80s. Everyone is somehow not like 50 years old now. Like they act like it's only been like 10 years. you know,
just
like
about.
They went from 20 to 30, but like in reality it'd be more like 30 years, but what the fuck ever.
Yeah, and it starts out with like the colonel is walking around in a mall, and I believe even the fucking like aspect ratio of the fucking show changes. Like it's like Letterbox now, and he just walks in, and there's Hitler just inexplicably dressed as Santa Claus, and he shoots the colonel. And when I say now, up until this point in the show, when they've shot people, it's kind of like in Speed Racer where they shoot at people. Sometimes people die, but it's been really like, oh.
They just kind of haphazardly shoot in directions, and then you see little sparks in areas, and guys just kind of fall down.
Yeah.
Like a 60s show. But in the second season, motherfuckers are getting torn apart by machine guns, like Paul Verhoeven style.
Squibs.
Arms flying off.
Blood.
So, like, the colonel from the first season, who's been leading them throughout this entire thing, just gets fucking slaughtered in the opening scene of the second season. It's just like, welcome to season 2 by Santa Hitler. And here's the other thing about the second season. Every single episode of the second season takes place on Christmas.
Because it's an 80s movie.
Yes, so it's Lethal Weapon by way of Die Hard. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, the American guy all of a sudden becomes like the fucking like straight the drunken cop with nothing to lose.
Yep. Oh, who's dealing with Korean War flashbacks. So basically he's like an amalgamation of guys like Martin Riggs and like Dirty Harry.
Yeah, and he just inexplicably always flashes back to this Korean guy putting on lipstick. It's
because the Korean guy tortured him by giving him a blowjob somehow, but he's so manly and so straight that he can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the first actual, I think it's the first actual episode, like they do this one, the colonel gets shot, and the Danger Five get back together. Pierre is all of a sudden inexplicably black.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the old actor wasn't available for the full season, so they replaced him with this new actor. But the thing about this new actor is that he's black, and the old Pierre was white. But the show acts like it's just the same Pierre.
Yeah, acts like it's the same guy. Same voice actor, even. Like
it's fucking amazing because you're sitting there and you're like, wow, like this happy accident that happened because they had to replace the actor actually adds to the second season, because now all of a sudden you kind of feel like you have like you basically have like the Eddie Murphy, and it works because like what's more 80s than Beverly Hills Cop? Like it's
and let's see, the Australian guy finally hooks up with like the British girl. They get married, and then she's killed on their wedding day.
She's straight up
fucking just
fridged.
murdered.
Beheaded by Hitler's
I think
wolf
they're
samurai.
Yeah, they're wolf samurais.
His wolf samurai, who's got a giant wolf head samurai sword. Who later in the show, because of the Dirty Harry cop guy, ends up with diamonds in his ruby.
Yeah, he has ruby heat vision
because
now.
the guy jams him into his eyes when they're in a fight. And he just has that for the rest of the show. And the guy, the Australian guy, who in the first season was very posh, which is why we probably mistook him as British, because he was very posh Australian, which comes across as very posh British.
Well, at least us Americans.
Yeah, us Americans with our shitty accent hearing, whatever you want to call it. And in the second season, once he loses his wife, he just goes insane and starts carrying her head around everywhere. Like, oh, I miss Claire. Like, oh God. And like over the course of the show, there are characters who die and then are resurrected. And every time it happens, he's like, oh, he got resurrected, but not Claire.
He fucking, like, Pierre, the guy who's French, who is now black, now inexplicably has, like, an Asian butler who has a white lion's head. Who speaks Japanese and turns the Australian character into a ninja. Because it's the 80s and you gotta have ninjas.
You gotta have the white ninja. You gotta have the white guy who's trained in ninjutsu and then runs around being a really bad ninja.
Yeah, so they do this, and you're like, okay, it's gonna be all like 80s like action movie. Like that first episode even has like a John Carpenter style soundtrack.
That stays for a lot of the show.
Yeah, it does.
It changes depending upon what the episode's focusing on, but for most of the show, that reoccurs. You know.
Yeah. Then we get to the second episode. Where all of a sudden they're in high school and they still gotta kill Hitler, who is disguised as a high school student.
So they all have to 21 Jump Street. They all have to pretend to be high school students because Hitler has disguised himself as a high school student. He's disguised himself as the cool kid from across the tracks.
Yep.
Who is trying to woo...
That Johnny Hitler is so cool!
Who's trying to woo... I think her name is Holly?
Holly, yeah.
Who's trying to woo Holly, who's this senior high school girl, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very Aryan, and you're not sure why he wants her, but for whatever reason, he must have her. She must be his prom queen.
Yeah.
And she is just ripped straight out of an 80s teen movie. Like, she is...
Yeah, she's the really irritating popular girl in every 80s teen movie.
And also it's very 80s, much like a lot of 80s movies. At the center of it is a teenage white girl. Like,
yeah, and so...
like Terminator.
And it keeps getting weirder this episode because you're like, are they just going to flip through every style of 80s movie? And the answer is yes.
Over the course of this teen movie, you go from, like, teen comedy, like a breakfast club, like a Breakfast Club kind of movie. But then the second half becomes a straight up 80s slasher when Hitler loses the prom competition and then immediately just starts slaughtering everybody.
Yeah, it very rapidly goes from, like, fucking, like, you know, like Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink to Prom Night and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Absolutely.
You know, like Hitler even, like, fucking, like, appears Freddy style a few times to, like, taunt them. And you're like, what the fuck is
At one point, he shows up with 4 flaming chainsaws to attack a couple having sex in the locker room, just inexplicably.
Yeah. Yeah, holy crap. And it's the show's so incredible. The stylization insane. Of the show is just amazing.
The first season perfectly captures like a 60s adventure show. And then the second season perfectly captures like a just the gritty 80s feel. You know, everything's smoked out. Like,
yeah, it looks like a Tony Scott film.
Yeah, it looks like a Tony Scott film. Neon colors. Like fucking gunfire that feels hardcore and just blood splattering everywhere.
And nudity. Like there is a lot of nudity in the second season because you got to remember this is an Australian show, and Australia, as long as you don't go too overboard, which this show might actually be a little over the line.
I don't even know.
You can show boobs on Australian television at certain times, so they do, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, like, which works because, like, for some reason, they're always inextricably at a bar or a strip club where they're dancing girls.
Instead of being, like, in the first season, they would always go back to, like, their hideout, which kind of had the feel of, like, the Charlie's Angels hideout, you know? It's just kind of like this, like, posh house, and it's got like a martini bar or whatever. Like you know, it's like every episode of Charlie's Angels where they all meet up. It's like, hi, Charlie! But in this case, it's the Colonel.
Yeah.
But In season 2, they don't seem to have a base of operations.
Well, they're on the run.
Yeah. So they're on the run. So they're just, anytime they're meeting or whatever, it's always in like a strip club or a club.
Yeah, that Pierre just inexplicably owns.
Yeah, because Pierre, over the course of the 2 seasons, like in between them, not over the course of them, but in between the 2 seasons, became a major pop sensation. Like he's Michael Jackson, you know?
Yeah, and every time, and now the in the previous season where it was like, all right, I'm dying. I'm gonna tell you how to make the perfect fill in the blank fucking cocktail drink. And they get really fucking stupid, like a Southern European tropic snowball.
Yeah.
And shit like that. But in the second one, for some reason, everyone's trying to give him a demo tape.
Yep. So every episode he ends
on
up with
cassette,
a demo tape.
By the way.
Yep. Because the future.
Yeah, and he can always, and they never really call attention to this, but he can always just inexplicably pull up a boombox.
Yep. Other things to get you excited and why you should watch this show. There's an episode there's an episode that is very much inspired by Italian gory zombie horror movies.
Oh yes.
If you're the kind of person who loves himself a Nazi zombie movie, I think we have the ultimate.
Oh my god, that's why I didn't catch the fact that it was specifically Italian. That's why they're in Italy.
Yeah,
oh my god.
They're in Italy in that episode.
I didn't.
Well, they're in
that.
Italy for the first half, and then they end up in Russia.
Russia, yeah.
Because it's the 80s now, so the USSR is a big overlooming threat. And their Russian teammate is now a double crosser. She's now a double agent, because it's now the Cold War as opposed to World War II.
Yeah, and the thing is by the end of the show, we actually end up in the 90s.
Yep. We end up in the 90s because they go to the future.
Yeah, they go to the future, and that's the 90s.
And which turns into a Power Rangers reference. Like the entire episode's Power Rangers. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, one of the other themes that keeps happening is the need to have. This isn't in every episode. Like they drop in the second season. The first season is very formulaic. Like they have their formula. They stick to it. It's like prologue happens. Colonel appears. Shut up, woman. Kill Hitler. Do first thing. Do second thing. Guy dies in Pierre's arms. End up back at the lair. That's the basic.
Yeah.
That's
First
the
season was very 60s episodic.
Yeah. You get to the 80s, and they still have motifs that go on, but they don't do them all the time, and they come at unexpected moments.
Yeah, and there's a little more of a continuity between each episode. There's now a previously on segment, which wasn't there before.
Yeah, and every previously on segment fucking has a bit that didn't exist in the previous episode.
Yep, just one. It's not the whole thing. There's just one bit that if you're not paying attention, you'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah, when did that happen?
But then you realize there's always something hidden there that wasn't there before.
Yeah. Also, in the first season, they have the sponsor who shows up at the end, like Laramie cigarettes.
Yes.
For that smooth after killing Nazis flavor, rolled, handmade by. But in the second season, it's always an 80s toy commercial.
Yep, a very 80s/90s, just extreme toy commercial. It's always something related to the episode they just saw. Like they have an entire toy for a baby Hitler toy.
Yeah.
There's a baby Hitler toy.
My God.
There's a toy of the Japanese lion character who inexplicably cooks pizza. And
he inexplicably cooks pizza for some reason. He doesn't in the show, just in this ad.
Yeah, just in the ad. There's the action. There's straight up action figures, which is done like a G.I. Joe commercial, but it's fucking Hitler. This show.
He will command the Third Reich. Oh man. This show actually reminds me a lot spiritually of the Aquabats Super Show.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there. The Aquabats Super Show is a little more for younger kids, whereas this is definitely intended for adults.
Yeah, this is definitely intended for adults.
Especially that second season. First season, a little less. First season, you could probably get away with being a little younger, but
second season, no. Must be 18 or older to ride. Holy crap!
Blood, guts,
a lot of profanity,
profanity. You know,
Oh
like
my, holy crap! Like,
a lot more sex too, just straight up sex.
yeah, straight up fucking.
You know, and the other one they do it like 60s shows where they have innuendos and stuff like that. Whereas this one, it's just straight up fucking.
Yeah.
There's a point where a guy fucks a Nazi who has disguised himself as a woman, and while they're fucking, he turns into a cow and summons the god Ra. Like, it's
it's so fucking crazy. You're like, how is this happening? There is this very bizarre, like, because now you're gonna be like, why is this here? Because there's a gay subplot, and you're like, why is this here? And every time the gay subplot happens, it looks like the movie Cruisin'.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize it's so at the end of the show, at the end, when we're in the 90s, you're like, oh, it's because it's the 90s now, and now it's acceptable to like actually have like a straight up like gay character.
Yep.
Because now we're in the 90s.
Yep.
Got it. Oh, I thought that was pretty brilliant. Yeah.
Everything, it's really well done. Like you can tell, like they thought out a lot of stuff. They probably made up a lot of stuff as they went along, but it all fits together.
Yeah, it fits together really well. The choice of doing most of the special effects with models.
Yes, yeah, and
was
it works.
Really brilliant. It works really well.
Like you notice it and you laugh, but you still like during the car chase, especially in the second season. There's a massive car chase that is straight up like out of a Richard Donner film, and I'm watching the car chase and I'm going, I know it keeps cutting to models and shit like that, but I'm actually invested in this chase.
Yeah, they actually get you involved in this like cheesy car chase.
Yeah,
that has dinosaurs with machine guns, by the way.
Dinosaurs with machines. There's a straight up raptor just on a Gatling gun going, ah! Yeah. That's the episode that for some reason inexplicably starts referencing Jurassic Park, but honestly what it actually reminded me more of Carnosaur.
yeah, which was actually later than Jurassic Park, but it did look a lot like Carnosaur, yeah. But Carnosaur is shot like an 80s movie as opposed to a 90s movie.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it reminded me more of Carnosaur, because it was shot like an 80s movie, but it was making Jurassic Park references.
Yeah.
Fucking lizard dinosaur men who work for the Vatican.
What? Oh man,
the show's amazing.
Yeah, the show is absolutely fantastic. Danger 5.
If you ever
ask for it by name.
If you ever want to see zombie Hitler on a guitar, a Nazi caster, rocking out and fucking invading Russia. This is the show for you.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. The strangest, one of the weirdest aspects of the show, where I was like, wait, there's a straight up through line about why this high school girl is important.
Mm-hmm.
It goes throughout the entire show, but it doesn't pay off till like the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting there. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like Hitler had a plan the whole time.
Yep. He had a master plan. It was like an 80s master plan now, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
You
know, like a fucking Skeletor or something. Like,
and they do, oh god, when they do the time travel episode where they go back
and meet their old selves from the first season, which means, for the record, if you were keeping track, there is now a black Pierre who meets the old Pierre.
And they recognize each other.
And it's acted like they're just the same person. It's glorious.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, apparently there are only 2 seasons of this show. There are only 7 episodes in each season, so it's 14 to 7
really
hours
short.
of viewing.
But
Yeah,
it's
really
worth it.
short. It's completely worth it. It's nice because if the show had actually lasted, if each season had been longer, I think the premise would have worn thin.
Yeah. It's the exact amount of length each season needs to be. That being said, there's plenty of room if they ever wanted to do a third one. I know they won't, but
yeah, apparently they're just done now, which is a little too bad because it's.
I
really
now have
awesome.
a new show to add to my favorites because this was just amazing in every way.
Yeah. Yeah, super good in every way. You really, really need to watch it, especially if you want to get like get your 80s your 80s stylistic nostalgia on that has been,
or your 60s, like the first season, like definitely harkens back to like Charlie's Angels, you know, like even old Star Trek. Like that's
God, last year when I said there was an 80s stylistic nostalgia wave that was hitting film and television, I didn't think it was going to manifest this fast and in this volume.
You were right, and it's happening. And it makes me feel really good because there was a lot of 80s nostalgia stuff in the early 2000s that ended up bombing. Or
it didn't catch on.
And I'm kind of happy that it is now because it's better late than never because I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. A lot of fun. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you the 80s weren't a lot of fucking fun. They were a blast, okay? Oh, man. Okay, well,
Danger 5, Ask for It by Name.
It's on Netflix Instant. Check it out.